Hi, everybody. I'm Vivi Magic, and I'm here today to bring you a video about Disneyland Paris. I did a video in the summer about my experience on the Disney Wonder cruise ship, and that video seemed to be very helpful to a lot of people in their own planning and wanting to know what the cruise was like. So I wanted to share this experience that I had at Disneyland Paris, and hopefully it is helpful to some of you out there that are maybe thinking about going and want to do a little research or have a better understanding of what to expect before you go. So I will share some of my tips and things I found most helpful, things that I did that I loved, things I wish I had done, a few of the cons, do some like compare and contrast to the US parks of Disney World and Disneyland, and just my overall experience. So I hope you enjoy it. So much like US parks, my first tip is to definitely download the Disneyland Paris app. It works very, very similar to Disney World and Disneyland. You can see the wait times, you can book restaurant reservations, you can do their Fast Pass, which is called the Premier Access Pass. And I'll get into that a little bit more in detail a little bit later. And you kind of have the park at your hand. So always download the app before you go, and even in your planning, so that you can book things in advance very easily, very seamlessly. I booked a 2-part ticket for one day, and I picked a dated ticket because I knew the exact date that I was going to go. If you pick a dated ticket, it's a little bit less expensive. If you need sort of a broad range of dates, they give you that option, but you're going to pay a little bit more. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you, I don't know, are more local to the area, or you're going to be there for a span of time, you don't have to pick the specific date. So if there's bad weather, it might be better for you to get a non-dated ticket. It's just going to be a little bit more expensive. But I only had one day to go, so I did the dated ticket. I have been twice. I had been to Disneyland Paris a couple years ago, and then just a couple weeks ago was my last visit. I did them very differently. The first time I went, I got a Premier Access Pass for the both parks, which allows you to basically have a fast pass for all the rides. The second time I went just recently, I didn't do Premier Access at all. And that's one thing that I will definitely note is I if I go a third time, I will pick the medium. I probably wouldn't get the Premier Access again. It's really expensive, but I did wish that I had paid for some of the rides. You can pay just for a single ride to go on, and I think it's around $5 to $10. It depends on peak season, and it gives you that access like a fast pass would, or lightning lane. So I wish I had done that, and I'll get more into detail about why. But yeah, overall, it depends on what season you're going in. But I wouldn't personally buy Premier Access Pass in advance. I would get to the park and kind of see how your day is going, see how crowded it is, and then decide from there if you need it or not. And you may only need it for one or two rides, and you end up saving a lot of money by not getting the entire pass. That said, I did go during low season, and I did not realize the parks closed as early as they did. That was my bad, as I didn't do enough research in advance. And Walt Disney Studios closed at 7 p.m. and Disneyland closed at 8 p.m. and they opened at 9:30 a.m. So it's really not that much time. And I took a midday break um, and got back to my hotel and was resting and was looking through the app trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I went back, and realized the closing time. And so I rushed back to the parks to try and get more done before the end of the day. So that is a major tip and note, is just to realize that park hours vary very much differently than the United States parks. I feel like our parks are open a little bit later um, than the Paris park. So do really make sure that you're keeping an eye when you're booking, when you want to go, what the park times open and close are, so that you can plan accordingly your day and how you want it to go. If you're going to make dining reservations, I recommend doing that 2 months in advance. I didn't do any dining reservations this trip. I just did quick service restaurant and eat outside the parks. But the one restaurant I probably would have gone to for a second time, the first time I went to it, was Walt's Restaurant in Disneyland Park. I had an amazing experience there. Highly, highly recommend it. If you like to have trinkets and things as memorabilia from your visits, you can get a pin at Walt's restaurant. That's the only place you can get it, and there's a lot of Disney pin collectors. So that was a really good memory from my previous visit. This visit, however, Walt's restaurant was closed for renovation, so it wasn't an option. Otherwise, I probably would have looked into doing it again because it was just incredible. So I highly recommend that restaurant. Tons of nostalgia with inside. If you were familiar with like Carthay Circle at California Adventure, kind of a similar vibe, just like the old black and white photos and just Walt's presence. So it makes for just a really good atmosphere and um, memory and experience. So that's a huge recommendation, but do plan in advance because it books up really quickly. The other restaurant I've heard is really good that I've not gone to in Walt Disney Studios is Remy's outside of the Ratatouille ride, or inside. It's kind of alongside it. When you get off the ride, you can see the restaurant. I've not experienced it myself, but I've heard from a couple of friends that they really enjoyed it. So that would be probably my recommendation for a meal in the other park. I also recommend to arrive at opening if you can, because when I got there, the lines were so short. I think Space Mountain was like 10 or 15-minute wait, and that's my favorite ride in the Disneyland park. So I went there first, and if you're familiar with the Space Mountain in the States, it's usually much longer line. So getting there early had a huge advantage. Got several rides done very quickly, very short lines. It was when I came back in the later afternoon that I noticed it was a lot busier. And I did the Web Slingers Spider-Man ride, and that line was 25 or 30 minutes, but it felt longer. And that was the longest wait time I had. The parks were actually pretty quiet. It was end of January, so didn't feel crowded at all, especially to what I'm used to in the States. So I did enjoy going during the winter when it's kind of quiet. It was cold, but it was completely tolerable. Blessed to not have any rain. All I needed was a heavy jacket and a long sleeve, and I was good for the day. We had great weather. Didn't snow, didn't rain. So fortunately we're blessed with that. But going in the winter can be tricky because I think the week before I was there was snow. There's pictures all over online of just snow on Thunder Mountain and just on the castle. And I kind of wanted to experience it. It looked really beautiful. But at the same time, I'm a California girl, so I'm not built for that kind of weather. So I was happy to avoid uh, harsh weather conditions. But getting there early is really key, because what happened in the evening was after the shows at the castle, the park was done. So I had looked forward to doing some rides in the evening, and it was a no go. And seeing the shows was really important to me. So yes, I recommend getting there as early as you can and getting as much done as you can early in the day, because the wait times were just almost non-existent. And then when I went the previous time, I went in the fall, and it was again pretty quiet. Um, but I did have that Premier access, so I don't really. It's hard to say um, what my situation would have been like had I not done that. If I had done Premier access this visit, maybe I would have gotten a lot more done. But I felt like we went through the lines really quickly, so I wouldn't have changed it other than for certain rides when I was running out of time doing that Premier access just for one single ride at a time. I would have liked to have used it on Spider Man and Crush's Coaster and Tower of Terror and gotten, 3 rides done over there. I was only able to do 2 in Disney Studios this visit. So that was a little unfortunate, but overall it was a really great experience. I did get to ride the Avengers ride, which was still being completed the last time I was there. It's called Flight Force. That was my favorite ride in Walt Disney Studios. It was really great. I don't want to give spoilers. I'm sure there's videos out there if you want to check out the ride. But to give you an idea, I would equate it to, if you're in California, it's kind of like Incredicoaster meets Space Mountain meets Star Wars. If you were in Florida or used to going to Florida parks, I would say it's Rock and Roller Coaster meets Star Wars meets Space Mountain, but smoother. And I really enjoyed that. So yes, Flight Force is probably my number one pick now at Disney Studios. Space Mountain is my number one pick at Disneyland Paris for the 2 parks. If you are thinking about getting a Premier Access pass, I will read you the rides that it is good for or attractions. So it gives you Fast Pass for, sorry, I use Fast Pass. I'm just old school, Lightning Lane, Premier Access, but you all know what I mean. Um, it gives you Fast Pass for Small World, Flight Force, Spider Man, Crush's Coaster, Thunder Mountain, Peter Pan, Ratatouille, Hyperspace Mountain, Buzz Lightyear, Laser Blast, which is like Astro Blasters in California, Tower of Terror, Autopia, Indiana Jones, Star Tours, Phantom Manor, Cars Road Trip, and Orbitron. So that is a lot of rides that you get a pass for. And the good and bad thing is that if you do get the Premier Access Pass, it is so expensive that very few people get it, and you will basically walk right on the rides. Like that's an improvement upon California and Florida parks. Is that so many people do it in California and Florida that you still end up having a bit of a wait sometimes. Whereas in Paris, like you, boom, you go right on the rides. But it is really expensive. In California, I think we pay 30 to 35 a day, depending on season. And over there, it's, let's see, I actually took notes on this. Low season, it's 90 euros, mid season, it's 120 euros, and high season, um, 160 euros, peak season, 190. So, I mean, it ends up being more than your park ticket. My park ticket was $96 US and change. And if I had gotten the Premier Access, I would have been paying basically the same amount as my ticket. So it is quite the cost, but again, it depends on how much time you have. I wish I could go back and have an extra day. If I had had 2 days, I would have been able to easily get everything that I wanted to get done and then some. But because of the shorter time frame of the park, I did not have the park hours. I did not have enough time to get everything done. So that's where I wish I had done the Premier Access one of getting one pass for certain rides and not taking a break midday and realizing that the park was going to close early. Next, I'm going to go into some of the cons of the parks as opposed to either Florida or California parks, in my experience. Generally, I feel like the food in the US parks is a lot better. I just did again a quick service restaurant for my lunch while I was there, and it was very mediocre. I didn't get anything fancy. I just had a salad, but even as a salad, it was pretty mediocre. Um, where I feel like US parks, if you know the right spots to go, really have some amazing, amazing food offerings. But that said, I really did enjoy my meal when I went to Walt's restaurant the previous time. So I think if you do sort of like the finer dining experience, then you're going to have some pretty good quality food. But I also felt like it doesn't seem like there's as many restaurants and there's not as many just like food and snack carts. Um, I just it's hard to find food a little bit. I mean, I feel like at Disneyland there's food everywhere, and I just it seems a little harder to find places to eat and snacks and that kind of stuff at Disneyland Paris. So that's kind of a con. Also, where are the popcorn buckets? I've gone twice now, and I'm a popcorn bucket collector, and I can't find popcorn buckets. There was one, and it was cute, but again, it doesn't touch, California, Florida, Tokyo, what they have in terms of that kind of stuff. And generally speaking, I also feel like the merch is eh, it's okay. I mean, you can get great things like pins and spirit jerseys that say Disneyland Paris and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't feel like there was anything super unique. The previous time that I went, and maybe because I didn't go in the same store again, there, I got like a blanket that had Tinkerbell all over it and said Disneyland Paris, and I had a scarf, and I felt like there was maybe because it's low season, but generally speaking, I just feel like the merchandise offerings aren't as strong either as other parks. My other con is the hours. As I previously mentioned, I was super bummed. Again, that was my fault for not doing an advanced check and really studying the hours and what I needed, how I needed to plan my day. But still, like 7 o'clock closing, I thought was super early, and I was surprised. I thought maybe it'd be like 9 and 10. Um, so that's another con if you're going to go in low season. Overall, I love the park. I think it's beautiful. The castle is one of the most beautiful castles that I've seen. I just feel like Disneyland Paris is missing that little bit of magic. I'm so emotionally tied to Disneyland because of the nostalgia. That's the park that I grew up in. It's a park I go to once, twice, three, four times a month. And I always just have like an amazing experience. And the customer service is, sure, you might get somebody on a bad day, but generally speaking, the customer service is amazing. And cast members really go out of their way to make a child's day more magical, or give somebody a special moment, or notice that you're doing something and try to help. And in Disneyland Paris, for me, in my experience, I've not had like a negative experience with anybody. I just feel like they're there doing their job. I don't feel like there's this extra zest in them to make somebody's experience more meaningful. So I did notice that both visits, that I feel like there's a little bit of magic missing overall when you're at that park. Um, just doesn't have the same feel as home, as Disneyland. Things that I wish I had experienced. Twice now, I have meant to go inside the castle. I like to go inside the castles. Every castle's different. Um, and you can, and a lot of people don't even know that you can go inside the castle. But the Disneyland Paris castle has these beautiful stained glass windows. And then underneath, there's a dragon's lair with an animatronic dragon. And you can go and it like comes to life. And I've seen videos and stuff, and meant to go there again because I missed it the first time, and I just ran out of time. And I was gonna try and go after the show, but the park was closing. So I'm really, really bummed I missed that. That is something that, even though I haven't seen it, I would recommend, because castles here, like, we don't have dragons, and that's something really unique. My thing with going to a different park is I want to experience things that I can't experience at my park. So if I go to Disney World, I want to go on rides that I don't have at Disneyland, more so than just like the popular attractions. So that was something that I didn't get to do. And I would recommend it to somebody who is looking to go. If you don't already know about the dragon, go visit the dragon because it looks amazing. Also inside the park is Alice in Wonderland's Curious Labyrinth. Um, Meant to go there because it looks really, really beautiful, especially for pictures and things. But I didn't get time. So that's another one that I would check out. Based on the things that I've seen online, it looks just like a, really cool, fun experience. Something again that we don't have in our parks. So it's worth checking out. And it's like a little maze. It can keep the kids busy for a little bit, let them run around. So yeah, I'm bummed that I didn't get to see that. I would have taken a lot of video of it. But next time we'll go. The Disney Hotel, New York, Art of Marvel. I did get to go in that hotel. Walking up to it, it's an easy walk from like their little shopping district right outside the park. And outside of it has these big statues of Black Panther and Iron Man and Captain Marvel. So it makes for great photos. It's right there along the water. It's just nice scenery. And I did go inside the hotel. Didn't see any rooms or anything, but I saw one of the restaurants slash bars wasn't open yet. I wish I could have gone in there because it looked really, really good. It was beautiful. It had like a skyline with the Avengers Tower in it, and the hotel, you do kind of feel like you're in New York. I did go to a bar, Doctor Strange's bar, called Bleecker Street, I think, and that was a nice experience. Just sat and had a couple of drinks. The great thing about this hotel too is there's over 350 pieces of Marvel art throughout. You walk in and you turn around and there's like comic books plastered all on the wall behind you, and there's sculptures, and there's just all these different art pieces. They have Iron Man suits displayed in the window. So I would have liked to have toured around there a little bit more, but beautiful hotel. And I recommend stopping by there if you have the time. To wrap things up, my favorite experiences. One was checking out the New York hotel, the Marble Hotel. I thought it was really beautiful and it's relatively new. So that was fun for me to see. And that was part of my downtime period as I went and had a drink with some friends. And I would love to go there again. I thought it was a beautiful hotel. As far as rides, Space Mountain in Disneyland is my favorite experience, and Flight Force in Walt Disney Studios is my favorite experience. So those are my top two rides, personally speaking. Thunder Mountain was closed for refurbishment. I have been on it before, and it's a great ride. It's right on like the river, and so a little bit different than California, but it was closed, so I didn't get to go on it this time. I also really like Phantom Manor. It's different than ours. In a good way. It's different than Haunted Mansion, but I enjoy it. But Space Mountain is definitely my favorite. I'm a little bit more of a thrill ride kind of person. My number one favorite thing of my trip was seeing the light parade. And those of you who are familiar with the Main Street Electrical Light Parade, it's basically that in the sky with drones. It was all that I wanted it to be and more. It was sensational, magical. I really enjoyed it. That was the number one thing that I wanted to do because it had just started up like the week prior to me going. So it was a brand new show and I was really excited to see it. Main Street Electrical Light Parade is like part of my childhood. My cousin had it on VHS as a kid and I babysit him and he would watch it on repeat. I mean, it's ingrained into me. So being able to see this show reimagined in a new and exciting way, but still also hold true to what it is was amazing. I saw snippets of videos online in advance, but I purposely didn't watch with sound or watch the whole videos because I wanted to experience personally. If I knew I wasn't going, I would have watched them for sure. But I like to be surprised and not know exactly what to expect. And so it definitely lived up to my expectations. Elliot and the pirate ship were my top two favorite parts of it. It was amazing. Afterwards, they did sort of I thought it was going to be fireworks, but it was more of a projection show on the castle. And what's beautiful about their castle is they have fountains in the front and they shoot up water super high, kind of like a Bellagio, but not that intense. Um, and that's stunning and beautiful. I was a little disappointed that it wasn't actual fireworks. They had like pyrotechnics and sort of like the, small booms that come out of the castle. And it was beautiful. The music and the projections were beautiful, but I feel like that's more or less what I get at Disneyland, and Disneyland's fireworks are incredible, as are Disney World's. So I was hoping to see fireworks. And in hindsight, I probably would have skipped that show and gone and done like a ride or something. Um, but it was great to experience it nonetheless. But the drones, 10 out of 10. I loved the drone show. I would happily see it again. I will recommend though, if you're going to go, um, get there early. I basically got there 5 minutes before it started and it was packed. It was the most crowded I had seen it in the past two times I visited. I had done fireworks or like their castle show the previous time that I went, and it wasn't that crowded, but it was a little rainy. And so I'm sure partially because it's a brand new show, but it was shoulder to shoulder, no room to move. So if you see this in the near future and this show is still relatively new, I do recommend getting there relatively well in advance, at least maybe 20 or 30 minutes. So you have a decent spot for the drones. But the good thing is that they are up in the sky. So as long as you don't have a tree blocking you, you can get a great view no matter where you're at. So that covers my video on Disneyland Paris, some of my favorite things, my least favorite things, some suggestions, and I hope you found this helpful, useful, or just enjoyed seeing some of what I got to experience and see. I wish I'd gotten a little bit more content, but I was living very much in the moment and wanting to really absorb and soak everything in. I did not want to take a video of the entire drone show because I really wanted to just see it real time. But I did try to get a little bit for you guys to share. And let me know what other kind of content you would like to see. If there's something at Disneyland parks that you're interested in me covering, I'm looking to create a little bit more park centric and Disney experience centric content and hope that it's helpful. Thank you for watching.